All right, we're good. We're live. Welcome back, everyone, to another film discussion. Today's episode 6. It is about a movie called Flypaper, and this movie is it was released in 2011, and it's a it's an indie film. So, let me pull up some of the facts about it because I don't remember who directed it or who cast or who was part of the film. But it's an indie film. It was released in 2011. It's a very interesting film. I'd say there wasn't a lot. Apparently, it wasn't advertised a lot, so it didn't gross a lot of money because of the lack of advertisement. But some quick facts about it. Oh, also this is going to have spoilers. So if you haven't watched the movie, um, you can go see it. Otherwise, be warned that this will have spoilers. But it's a 2011 American crime comedy film. It stars uh, Patrick Dempsey and Ashley Judd as the two main characters, Trip and Caitlin, and it's directed by Rob Minkoff. Um, its budget was $8 million. Its box office was $1.2 million. So it lost a lot of money. It wasn't But so the fun fact, another fun fact about it, according to Wikipedia, was that it only grossed $1,100 total in its theatrical release in one theater on two screens because it didn't have any advertising, with no advertising at all.
Oh, did they
Um,
really distribute it?
I have no idea.
Mm, interesting.
Apparently they did. There was a company called Foresight Unlimited, and the Safran company that distributed it, but it just you know guess it just didn't really it wasn't marketed very well if it was distributed. Um, it's so yeah, so that those are some fun facts about the movie. Another fun fact about today's stream is that we have a special guest. If in case you didn't know, today's special guest, his name is Josh. He's a friend of mine from high school. He's the one who actually recommended the movie to me and Austin for us to watch. So we do take recommendations. Um, if you want to recommend it in the chat, you want to say something in chat and recommend it. We Austin and I would be glad to like look over it and watch it and then review it and discuss about it. So today's a special episode. Wait, Josh, do you want to introduce yourself? You want to say anything about yourself?
Uh, yeah, I mean, my name is Josh. Yeah, so I guess I watched this movie a long time ago, and I thought it was really good. And I guess when I read the reviews, they were not so good, and so I was just curious what other people had to think about it. And since Patrick started doing the stream, I thought it would be interesting to get his opinion on it. And I'm very happy that he took my recommendation and actually watched it despite the negative reviews. So
Cool.
yeah, I'm looking forward to what they have to say about it.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's start talking about it. Let's get right into it. Austin, what are your thoughts
Oh boy.
on this movie? How do you feel about this movie
Um,
overall?
I will be frank. I didn't
All
like this
right.
movie at all.
Wait. What did you say? You said you didn't like this movie at all?
I did not like this movie at
All
all.
right.
Um,
Just as I predicted. Sorry.
yeah, I think I do realize that it's a comedy, and I think maybe it just didn't sit too well with me. I think the, just the even this the first scene of the movie, just going into it, it seemed very very chaotic, and it just drops you right into the middle of the action. There was no like setup, so I actually had to rewatch it because I didn't know if this was the actual beginning, and I was just a bit confused of what was happening. But
Yeah.
even then, it kind of devolved into um, something I was not expecting. So this whole movie I thought was like a heist film, or should be something along those lines, and it becomes a whodunit um, in a way where the main character, Trip, played by Patrick Dempsey, is kind of um, neurotic, or he's taking medication for something, to keep him I guess normal, but I don't know, but he's he tries to solve this mystery of why one of the customers in the bank was killed during this heist. All while we have these two teams of bank robbers, trying to hit the bank at the same time, and for some reason, the more high caliber team, who seems more experienced, more trained, allows the other duo, who what were their code names? Peanut butter
Peanut
and
butter
jelly.
and
Right?
jelly. Yep.
They try to they accept them in the bank robbery, or allow them to do their own thing to hit the the ATM machines while they go for the vault. And it's just I think it's just this whole movie seemed kind of ridiculous in terms of the premise of everything and how each character's reactions to everything that was going on, and it just seemed just really ridiculous. And on the bright side, though, I did like Patrick Dempsey in terms of his acting, because I've seen him do some other more drama. I saw him, he was in Grey's Anatomy. I watched that when I was a little younger. But just see him have this kind of different role was pretty funny, and I thought he acted pretty well in that. But just the whole movie itself, like the plot, just each character, how they were portrayed, and I just I at the middle of the film, I was just like, can I just stop watching this? And I was just like, I have to continue on. It just got so ridiculous. And it's not like, even like when they reveal everything at the end, it made sense. I feel like they're just pulling things out of the air. But I would say the only thing that was kind of clever was the one where Caitlin was revealed as the third bank heist, or the third number 3 bank robber, because it was kind of set up in the in the beginning of the movie, and how she turned. And I kind of figured she was somebody, and when they revealed that there's another female number on the FBI's most wanted, and I felt like she was like somebody. So I thought that was clever at the end, but just everything else, I was just like, I don't get what's going on here. So that was my impression of this movie. But yeah, how about you, Patrick?
Yeah. So I guess I'll talk a little bit before I give it to Josh, since he's the one that recommended it. But I think overall, I think I agree with you in the very beginning, like the first maybe 30 minutes or so. It was a little bit nonsensical. There were just a lot of things that happened. I was just like it just felt like a very to me it felt very cheap. Like the effects some of the effects felt cheap. Some of the exposition and like the characters that were coming in and everything, that it felt very low budget in a sense. And it's
an indie film.
It was like it's an indie film, but I didn't really the beginning didn't really sink. It didn't really draw me in very well. But what I really did like about it after the first 30 minutes or so was what it became. So it became more of like a almost like a mystery, trying to figure out what's going on. And I did start appreciating all the different character interactions, because at that point I didn't really take the movie too seriously. So I was just like, oh, it's a comedy. It's a kind of like a comedy crime film that people are just they don't know what's going on. They don't know what's happening, and you're trying to figure out what's happening as an audience. So I kind of got invested in terms of trying to figure out what this mystery, if you will, because there was a bigger plot to it other than just peanut butter and jelly kind of robbing ATMs or whatever. But in the end I did really like the overall second half of the film, more so than the first half, a lot more. It definitely exceeded my expectations. I did not have any expectations going into this film, and yeah, I mean I could talk more about it, but before I do, I just want to get let's get our special guest's opinion on it too. So take it away, Josh.
Sure, yeah. So I rewatched this yesterday because I had already forgotten pretty much what happened in the movie. And
how long ago did you watch it?
How long ago? Sorry, what did you say? I don't even know, maybe
how
5 or 6 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wasn't actually sure because I was telling Patrick before that like maybe I only enjoyed it because I was on a plane, and like when you're on a plane, like anything is interesting. But despite that, I still felt like I enjoyed the movie overall, even on my second time rewatching. I, I do feel similar to like both of you guys that the beginning was very chaotic, and like yeah, I don't know. I guess it didn't like seem like it was gonna be a good movie again from my perspective
Yeah.
from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Although I feel like it kind of actually makes the movie like the second like it sets up the second half of the movie to be even better in my opinion. Like I feel like the contrast between the two and like some of the like kind of ridiculous like this like things that happen in it, like for example like when they're pulling themselves up in the like criminal database to see their rankings, like how that later like serves as like a plot point. I feel like that kind of like ridiculousness in the beginning is like kind of yeah like just like there to like help bridge like the entire thing. And yeah, I don't know. So um yeah, and on my rewatch I actually didn't remember who like the Vicelis drum person was, and I didn't catch like what was happening in the middle. And so actually when I went back and rewatched it like after like today, I was like trying to figure out like when he was like leaving, like how did he have time to like kill the people and stuff like that. So like I did notice like I couldn't figure out like one of the times where he was able to kill like the two people and set up a double murder, but the other ones like seemed reasonable. So I thought that that was interesting that like that they at least had some like plot, like it wasn't completely plot wholly for everything I guess, but yeah, maybe a little bit. So I don't know. I think just in general, like I enjoy the movie for its like entertainment value, not for its like yeah plot consistency or anything like that. Like I thought it was an interesting concept and it was done like well, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that if for this film you really have to, in my opinion, and I think maybe everyone else can kind of agree, is that in order to get to the good part of the film, you have to get through the first half, 40, 30 minutes of it. If you can't get past that, then you won't. It's a return on investment essentially. You have to like wait it out before it like picks up, and when it picks up, it gets more interesting. And so yeah, I mean that aspect of trying to figure out what's going on with this like bank heist where like everyone is sort of interconnected in one way is pretty interesting, because like you as the audience, like the characters on screen are trying to figure out, so you as the audience can also try to figure it out with them. So it's a bit of a mental exercise, if you will, just trying to see everything unfold. Speaking of the final baddie, like the overall baddie, I don't know about you guys, but at least for me, I was trying to figure out like really intensively who it was, and I had narrowed it down to two main people. There was a bit of a third. There was a dark horse and there was a darker horse that I had, but the two main people I had in mind were the actual baddie, like the old dude who played. He was in Ocean's 11. I don't know if any of you guys had seen it, but he was in Ocean's 11. I forget his name, but him and then the Caitlin, or the main girl, the main. So those two characters were like my two like main suspects, and then I had a dark horse who was Trip. So I thought maybe it could have been Trip. Like I was like, okay, if this film goes in the direction of Trip, like I'm very curious how they're gonna like play it out, because it would be really really cool to see that. And then my darker horse was one of like PB&J. Like if PB&J was like they were if they were like, I swear, like if PB&J were actually like the big baddies, and somehow they were just like, because like that saying where it's like the smartest guy in the room is one who plays the fool, or something like that. I don't know if there's like some saying about that.
Yeah,
that, like people.
Yeah.
So like that's what I was thinking. I was like, dang, if this movie pulls off like
court jester, yeah.
If this movie pulls off the execution of PB&J being the big baddie, and they like fooled everyone, I actually would give it hands off. Like I would like good job. Like it depends on the execution, but if they had executed that well, that concept well, I would have like, this film would have been like way higher on my list. So yeah, those are my main suspects, and then it turns out that yeah. I think mainly the reason why I suspect the old guy as the Vasilis Drum, who was actually the Vasilis Drum is the big baddie of the film.
Yeah.
He So there was a scene where he was like he kind of went into this shock, I think, because of he didn't have the insulin, and then he told the bank or the bank robbers, the heistmen, that he had to go to the bathroom again after he had gone recently, and I was like, this guy's like disappearing. There's something up with this guy. Like, I don't believe it. I don't believe that he has to go back and forth multiple times. Because these murders that were happening sporadically throughout the film were they occurred when characters weren't really present, because the film was kind of like in the perspective of Trip.
Yeah.
Like, Trip was the main character. So it's sort of like like when I was thinking about it, I was just thinking about like which characters weren't on screen, like which characters did you not see, and those are the ones I suspected the most. So it was that scene in particular when he was like, like faking the. I don't know if he faked it, but like supposedly.
Well, they kind of set it up, right? Because right in the beginning, when they were taking hostage, one of the bank tellers, right, was asking about bathroom breaks, right?
Yeah,
and it's like, what if we have to, go multiple times? And then she was actually referring to the bank manager, right? 'Cause she was like patting him because she knew like, well, his condition, right? Like, apparently. So they set that up, and then later in the film, right, he was saying, "Oh, I need to go to the bathroom again." So, but you're right, he did go. I mean, that didn't trip me off at that point, because it's like, oh, he was yeah,
sorry,
because it kind of because it kind of was set up earlier, like, oh, this guy has to go to the bathroom many times. But you're right, yeah, those scenes, those times when he was off screen, right, especially the scene with the insulin. You're right, everybody in that room left the room.
yes.
Right, to get that. And I was just like, everybody.
Well,
Well, I
everyone
guess
except for this.
except for who?
Sorry, it was everyone except for the Swiss Miss, and then she was the
Yes.
one who was found dead.
She was the one.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, that was the one I had to rewatch to make sure like that actually happened, to see if anyone else was in the room, to see if it was possible. But yeah.
That's that's a great point.
So you're right. He was not present, especially in a closed environment where everyone's stuck in a bank. But I don't know. I think it was this whole movie just to me. I mean, yeah, they I guess they set that up, just the way the characters, and I think also Trip himself, just his character just did not sit too well with me. At least in the beginning. I mean, once you start figuring out, maybe, but it's just that he was just so erratic, and I mean, you're right. For this to be a comedy, we shouldn't take it too seriously. And maybe I was just like, that I don't do well with comedies, and I'm just watching it as is, and I'm just like, and we saw this like last movie too.
Yeah, we did see this last movie.
What am I watching? And same thing with this, the comedy. But I feel like this one's a lot more ridiculous, and just you have Trip, being erratic, and trying to come on to Caitlin, right? And trying to well, we tell that she's married, but we find out later that was a whole cover story. Figures out, right?
Yep.
And that could be all attributed to him being able to deduce, or whatever, be able to figure that out. But he was just putting everyone's safety at risk, and just doing all these things, being allowed to run around the bank. He had opportunities to be freed, and he just he was really single-minded, and I just want to solve this case. I just didn't. I guess I just never expected expectations of this whole film to be like a whodunit kind of thing. I thought it should just be like a bank heist gone wrong, and you got these two feuding bank robberies. And this kind of reminds me of I forgot. I watched a lecture before about storytelling and whatnot. And they said when you write your first chapter, it's all about expectations and managing it, right? When something doesn't meet your expectations, that's when something can go wrong with the reader, and your book might not do well, right? Like when people are expecting to read like a science fiction book, but somehow it turns into like fantasy or like a rom-com, right? People don't expect it, or not expected to read it. And I think this is what happened to me, right? So I'm watching this movie, and I think reading from the description, I'm thinking this is like a bank heist, and all of a sudden it becomes a whodunit, and not just a whodunit, right? But it singularly focuses on a whodunit by a character, Trip, who's really focused. And I feel like out of everything that's going on right now, like a whodunit really didn't matter. In this situation, I mean, I guess that's the premise of the film, right? That's the whole plot, right? But I was just like, this is, you have two bank robberies going on, and this guy is trying to figure out why this other man is dead, during a bank heist. But yeah, it's just so ridiculous to me, and I think that's just turned me away, and yeah, maybe that's just because of my own views on or my own liking of the comedy genre and whatnot. So.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I think peanut butter and jelly, those two guys, the first time they were introduced, I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is, you got two guys like this doing a bank heist. But I feel like at the second half of the film, I kind of liked them for who they were doing. It just there was kind of like a charm to them, and I was just like, I hope nothing really happens to them. And they got away at the end, but still, I was just like, they're kind of they became kind of lovable, I guess, near the end. Just the way it's just the way that they're acting. They're kind of like, oh yeah, we just want to bank rob, but we don't want to hurt anybody. And but still, I just there are some endearing parts, but still, the whole section, just the introduction of it all, it's just like, why weren't they grouped together with the rest of the hostages? Because the real bank robbers, they wanted to do the job well. Now you have these two variables in the same bank with also who are armed, and you're just going to allow them to do whatever they want, operate how they want. That didn't sit too well with me. So.
I mean, this whole film is about this whole film is there's a lot of incompetency going on in this film. So
right, but the bank robbers, the professional ones, right? They were saying, oh, we've done this for like 10, 12 years, right? We've done this operation, and now this is another big heist, and we're just gonna let it happen, Well, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but so this is the part where I think this is the part where you. At least, this is the part where, you can't really take the film too seriously, because, at least for me, when I started watching it, I knew that it was going to be a comedy, because I had seen, the genre and everything, and the ratings and everything, so I didn't really have, high expectations in terms of, the quality. When I think of, this crime comedy, I was just thinking, oh, what parts are going to introduce the comedic parts, right? And, so, I was for me, it wasn't, I think I do kind of agree with you, Austin, in the point where, in the beginning, it doesn't really know where it was going, and when it turned into more of a mystery, trying to figure out stuff, you're like, oh, so this is more of this is the overall plot, and we're trying to, the plot is kind of unfolding as the story is progressing instead of being set up properly in the very beginning. But for me, it was I kind of just since I didn't have many expectations and I knew it was a comedy, I was just more interested in the journey. Rather than where it was going, the destination. I just wanted to see how it was going to unfold and whether or not they were able to execute well. But I think overall this film itself is just a big parody of a lot of things. It's a big parody of a comedy heist film. It's a big there's some aspects of a parody, it's parodying for instance, when Swiss Miss dies, or Miss Swiss dies, or whatever her name is, one of the guys, peanut butter or jelly, I forget. They come up and one of them's like, "Aw, you hate it when it's the hot the hot girl dies, because then you care about her," and then the other woman is side eyeing him it's oh, it's because if she's ugly, then you don't blah blah, you don't really care as much. And that part to me was just a big parody on when very attractive characters just die in films for whatever reason. And so it's parodying this emotional feeling that you get when you're more attached to attractive people rather than not as attractive people. It's just pointing that out to the audience. It's almost breaking the fourth wall in a sense. And I thought that was a really funny, great scene, because to me it was just a big oh, this is what you guys feel. We know this is how you feel, so we're just going to say it right there. So to me, it was just it was a comedy, but it was also a parody in a sense of various aspects of comedies or crime heists, because it just making fun of itself. It was making fun of the genre. It was having a good grand old time. So those are some. I don't know if that's what the director intended, but like that's how I interpreted those parts.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't laughing.
I was. I thought it was. I was laughing. I at least was smiling. I was entertained.
But
Yeah.
what did you guys think of Trip himself? So you already know what I thought, right? But what do you think about this main character, right? So he plays, we already know like he's kind of neurotic and was singularly focused. But what did you guys think? How his character played, just his role, and whatnot.
I think I actually liked his like setup for like the fact that like he has like some kind of like mental like state that like like makes him want to like inquire about things, because I think that made the like fact about like why did the guy die more believable. But I agree that that whole part was like kind of like ridiculous in the sense that like most hostages would probably just like not want to like get killed anymore, or like yeah, like all the things that he was doing was like making him like more likely to be killed in my opinion. So like, but like I think that the fact that he didn't get to take his meds kind of, and like that like later when it was explained that like the thing is like he is like seeing a bunch of channels all at the same time kind of, and like basically he can't help it kind of. I feel like that was kind of interesting in a sense. And I thought his acting like I think the acting was really good. Like it was like his character was believable to me. So yeah, I had no issues there, I think. But yeah, I don't know, Patrick, what did you think?
Well, he reminded me of a Sherlock Holmes-esque figure.
Definitely, yeah.
He definitely. That's the first impression I got. That's like, of Trip. Um, I think. I think his character was fine in terms of like, I think in the very beginning, you knew that he was sort of eccentric, right? Because he said these like prime numbers and like however many nickels, dimes, quarters, or whatever. It was very odd. So like you knew that this guy wasn't like normal by society standards. So like, and it later revealed that like he had to take some meds and to like he's on medication, right? So I think his like obsession with trying to figure out stuff was sort of like it was accentuated by the fact that he was not on his meds. He sort of had this like obsession in a sense to try to like just figure out what's going on. Like I guess there wasn't really like a motivation per se. It was just more of like, to him it was like a problem that he wanted to solve, and he didn't necessarily like care about his own well-being as long as like the problem was able to solve it. So like to me it was like, like why does like Sherlock Holmes kind of just like go into solving these problems even though he could just not do that, right? It's just like it's like the thrill of the game, thrill of like problem solving, and so like to me that's sort of like his character, and it was accentuated by his lack of medication, or like the fact that he wasn't on meds, so it became maybe more obsessive about it,
Right.
and erratic. So to me it wasn't like surprising, but like I guess he didn't really require like a strong motivation to like seek out the solution to this bank heist mystery.
Right.
So I don't know. I guess I don't know if that answered your question, Austin.
No, I mean, I think giving perspective on why you guys liked it. I just I think the maybe the main takeaway, right, is just like at least for me, like the enjoyment of this movie is the protagonist, right? If you can attach yourself to the protagonist, if you like the protagonist, then the whole film will be, I think, enjoyable. Just for me, following along to this protagonist, I didn't like the character itself. I mean, the actor, the way he acted. I think you're right, Josh. Like the way it was acted, it was believable, right? I agree. Like the way he was acting, like, I believe this guy was just kind of unhinged as some after he not having his medication, he became unhinged and just solely focused. And yeah, the actor was able to portray that well. I just following this protagonist who kind of has a did not care for the well-being of others, and was just single focus, just not go well with me. And then also the fact that he was also, I think, trying to and I don't know if it's just a different time period, but just he was trying to hit on Caitlyn this whole time as well.
Okay, yeah.
And I was just like this is kind of at least for me it was just kind of uncomfortable at that point too, because now you have this guy who is just like pushing himself onto her, and we, at least in the beginning we established that she was getting married, but obviously at the end we kind of realized like, oh, no, it's all a cover story and whatnot. But throughout the film, just like it's just kind of uncomfortable about what this guy is trying to do. But I think especially in a whodunit caper like this, obviously he's the main role, right? Because we want to see how everything is focused on, but we also have the cast of characters as well to make it enjoyable. And as I said before, you have Peanut Butter and Jelly, who at first I was just like I don't know who these guys are, why they're be there, but they kind of I grew to like them a little bit more. But then you also have the other I guess people in the bank, as well as the other team of robbers. The out of three professionals, right? You have two guys, right? One guy who was black, and one guy who was Jewish, who seemed more on top of everything. But they just made some pretty bad decisions at the beginning of how the heist was going, but they seem like they know what they're doing. And then you have the other guy who had what was it, like an Australian or something accent.
Yeah. He was number 4 in cyber heists.
Yeah, exactly. And he was just like gung ho on like hurting people. So he was like new to the whole bank thing because he wanted to at least try to off somebody, but at the same time he was kind of reluctant to, at least in the beginning, like I feel like kill somebody at least. But he was kind of also outrageous, especially he kind of devolves, and that there was a loss of control, right? So he just wanted to get the money at the end of the bank. But we didn't really focus on those aspects, those characters, right? And then you have the other people in the bank, right? The bank manager, who turned out to be Vasilis Drum, the bank tellers, the one I think one guy who was like who knew about bank robberies, or like was like a bank robbery counselor or something like that. He he didn't really play much of a role. But then there's also that creepy security guard, right? Who was
Mr. Clean.
Yeah, he was actually pretty. Yeah, I think they showed him pretty prominently in the scene. Like there's like a lot more scenes with him, just being creepy. And then you had the one reveal, or not reveal, but he had like the rifle or the gun pointed at them. We thought like, oh, is this guy the mastermind? Like, no, it's not. But he's just like, oh, I want to make sure.
Yeah.
I want to protect myself, and if you're getting out here, I want to get out of here. But just all these other kind of crazy characters, bunched into this movie. Some of them have more focus than others, but it was still like a pretty wild in terms of how these guys are interacting and whatnot. So
yeah, I will say I'm not, so the whole like romantic angle between Trip and Caitlyn, I don't think that like it was necessary for the entire plot of the movie. I think it was just there because it's like Hollywood, and we needed like a romantic angle that's like attractive in one sense. So it was just more like, I don't think it was like necessary to the plot or to the entire story. It could have been like Caitlyn could have been a dude, and it could just like it was just there for like that like romantic tension throughout the film. And then
she was kind of like the Watson to the Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, in a sense, she was like almost like the it would have been so much better if she was the perpetrator, but I will say, so like another thing is I do have some questions about the film, and now I'm looking back in it, and maybe I'll rewatch it later just to figure out. But if you guys know, do you guys know when Vasilis Drum, like, he hijacked or he, what's it called, he the blowtorch that got the one of the killers killed because it blasted him off the roof and down to the floor. Like, do you know when that happened, when he hijacked that? Or I don't know if hijack's the right word, but did he do it beforehand or?
Yeah, I don't know. I was expecting that it was beforehand, like same with the explosives. I was thinking that like he like supplied them with the bad explosives too, or something like that. Because I don't think he had that much time like in the actual like heist to do that. Because like basically, Vasilis Strong had been in contact with both of the sets of like robbers, right? So
right.
like he could have supplied them with faulty supplies and stuff. And he did
Yeah.
supply them with like faulty information in general, so to like make the heist go wrong. So that
Mm,
was what I was thinking.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There could have been many times where, the only thing like thinking about, I don't know if this happened before or after, but you know when the whole explosion went off, right? Um, and everybody kind of left to see what happened in the after the first explosion where the peanut butter and jelly set off the ATM.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking maybe that's when the bank manager or Facilis Drum went in to do it, because that's when all the bank robbers kind of left the area, right, to see what was going on.
Mm.
Or it could have actually been during one of the bathroom breaks, right? Because there was one point, right, where oh no, I guess that's not true. Well, maybe, because there's one point where the IT guy, right, was meeting with the other bank robber, right, where there was the double murder, right?
Mhm.
And then there was one point where they're escorting. No, but then the other bank robber was at the bank, at the vaults. I'm not too sure. That's a good question. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. I think it might have been the explosion, but I don't know where.
What about the time? Isn't that also around the time when he killed the two people? I forget what their names are, but the one of the bank heist members, and then the guy who was in on it from the
Yeah, the IT guy. Yeah, that's the double murder. So that's when I think when he went out to the bathroom the second time, I think that's when he got those two guys, right?
Okay.
Maybe. No, because who was watching?
Yeah, that's what I thought too, but I couldn't tell like how the two people were in the kitchen like alone. Like I don't think they really explained that part, but maybe I missed something too. So
Well,
I didn't fully rewatch this.
Well, they're in the kitchen alone because the IT guy, right, the guy on the inside, or the trader, right, he is sick, right, because he was like, they said, oh, they were going to catch him, and they knew who it was him, and he didn't want to go to prison, so he wasn't feeling too well. So the other bank robber took him to the kitchen to get Pepto-Bismol, because he was not feeling too well.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's why
Okay,
those two guys were alone in the kitchen.
But where
right?
was everyone else?
It was during the bathroom break, so everyone else was in the.
In the
I
bathroom?
think in the conference room, right? But then somebody, I don't know who was escorting them to the bathroom at that point, because it was supposed to be. No, it was the Australian bank robber, because that's when the other guy, the bank robber in the glasses, told him, "Hey, come up here, escort them for bathroom breaks."
Okay.
And-
Okay.
And then the person who was escorting to the bathroom after that was the bank manager and Miss Swiss, right? But
Yeah.
but they only went to the bathroom. But that's not when he killed her.
Yeah, he killed her after the failed. He was,
Yeah.
I guess, faking his episode.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I need to rewatch the parts to figure out if there's any like plot holes. I don't think there are. It's just very subtle instances
Yeah.
of like these very opportune moments where he just goes in. I do have I was confused about one point. Now that I think about it, is that when Tripp went to the bathroom for I think the first time, he like went directly to the night vision goggles. He like opened up the case and then saw the night vision goggles, and I wonder like what prompted that, because it wasn't obvious, right? It was just like a
Yeah.
container where it had some toilet supplies or whatever, or bathroom supplies, and he just opened it. Maybe he was just looking around. I don't know. But
he could have been curious or something. I don't know.
don't know what
recall.
necessarily prompted him to just start looking over. Specifically, like in the yeah, it was just like maybe it just seemed a little convenient that he's like, oh, there's some night vision goggles. Why are they here? And I know that was going to be like a plot device later,
Well, yeah.
because
I
like
thought there was something on top of the container or something that like prompted him to like look inside,
Yeah.
but I wasn't really sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
so-
there was probably something that called out to him. I think. I don't think he
just randomly
but,
went in there. Okay.
Yeah.
I know he was trying to look for clues, so like, I'm not like I'm not like, oh man, this is like way out of the blue, but it just felt like mildly convenient that he found it very quickly.
Yeah.
But
So I will say that when I was watching, like when I was trying to figure out who was the big baddie or whatever, since I remember there was like a big plot twist at the end, I thought it was actually Trip.
Okay.
Or, like I was starting to think of Trip because he had like access to
Yeah.
like he was the one like moving around the most, right? Which would make the most obvious sense.
Yeah.
And actually, the scene that like confused me the most was when after he turns the light off and then they go for the night vision goggles and then he comes up, he tells a story about how like he saw the bank owner and like he knew it was him because like of him going for the night vision goggles, and then I started like doubting myself. I was like, wait, is it actually the old guy or is it actually Trip that he's making up the story? Because like it's like he's like, oh, like that's like no one's gonna believe that story.
Yeah.
And then he even has that part where the old guy is saying like, if you kill me now, I'll make you like look even more like Vicelis drum or whatever. And I thought that was like a really interesting scene in general. Just like yeah, like the fact that like but something that like kind of I didn't really like about that part was the fact that like apparently during that scene the girl like Caitlin or something, she was like busy like putting the money into her bag, so she had no way to confirm that like Trip was actually telling the truth, right? But so like I felt like there was no good way, like unless both of them were there to catch the person, like I feel like that part was like kind of like it could have been Trip like out masterminding like the girl even further, you know, like but I don't know.
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess she did put trust on Trip because she was like, oh, the reason he turned off the lights is because like he's trying to figure out who the Vasilis drum is, because they would go straight for the night vision goggles. But like
because like she accused him of being Vasilis drum, and then the lights go off, and then a bunch of murders happen. I was like, okay, it's like probably Trip, you know? Like, but I was wrong. I had misconceptions from my previous watching, I think.
That's interesting.
Well, I feel like same. I mean, like I think I kind of narrowed it down to either Trip. You know, I think Trip, the bank manager. And then Caitlin was my dark horse. I was like, maybe it's her, but I feel like because as you said, Josh, like Trip was going around everywhere, and I was just like, this guy, it would make sense. And then guy kind of was revealed, right? I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can buy that. I believe that, right? Because it built this whole. But then obviously the protagonist is the protagonist, not the actual antagonist.
Could have been a good twist.
And then but the whole scene with the whole bank manager was like, where did this come from? Because like the bank manager like played it off just like no one's like he wasn't like really nervous or anything. He was just like he kept it cool, and I was just like I think I was the same idea. Like I didn't know at first whether or not it was a story he was telling or if it was actually happening at some point. But then obviously they kept going on with it. It's like, okay, so this is the actual events that were going on. But like that whole part, just that's why I feel like sometimes like for this whole whodunit, right? Sometimes I feel like it was like pulling things out of it. I mean, there's explanations, and maybe just because I didn't catch it, right? This some of the subtlety there, but sometimes it just felt like things were not going just like the ways that they were coming to that conclusion was just not doesn't really do it smartly. And I think that's also why with the Trip, right? He plays this Sherlock Holmes, but a lot of the clues that were happening there pulling out, I couldn't really find where he was getting these conjectures, right? He was just putting two and two together.
I mean, to be fair, Sherlock Holmes assumes a lot too. Like he kind of pulls things out like thin air.
No, that's true. But it just felt like okay, like where is he like going with it? Like it didn't really make sense. Like there's like powers of observation, and I guess it kind of established that he had this whole medication thing. Without it, he sees everything and that mathematically and whatnot. But there's just there's just a lot of points where I'm just like I don't buy it, or I was just like I don't get why it was coming to those conclusions. And I mean at near the end I was like okay, I can get it, but then kind of the whole twist with the bank manager, I was like okay, I don't know about that.
I think that it's actually very common for these kind of like whodunit things that like because like basically like if it's too obvious to like the viewer, then like it's not gonna be interesting,
right. We don't want to be a Scooby-Doo episode.
Some element like when I watch Sherlock episodes, it's the same. Like I feel like it's like pulling out of thin air most of the time too, because like otherwise like it's not interesting, right? Like so I feel like there's kind of this balance that you have to strike, and it's very hard. But I do like the fact that at least most of the things can be explained if you rewatch and like see. Like for example, like the fact that he killed the Swiss Miss person. like they were alone together at some point, but it was like not obvious that he was faking or something like that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I do like that like attention to detail. I guess it wasn't like after the fact. Like none of that stuff could have been possible. I guess so. Yeah.
I will so I will say that like I think the film does a good job of like giving these fake signals of like, oh, who do you think it is? Because like there was one point where Trip was like Caitlin was like, who's the guy? And then Trip's like, or girl, and then it's sort of like you're like, oh, wait a minute, is it going to be Caitlin? And then there was the part, Austin, you mentioned where like the Mr. Clean came out with it, like he just pulls out a gun like randomly and starts like aiming at them, and you're like, wait a minute, Mr. Clean, it can't be Mr. Clean. And so there's these like, and near the end there's a lot of like these really cool like fake sparse signals where you're like, as an audience, you're like, it keeps you on your toes and it makes you want to know more, at least for me, because it's reaching the climax and you're like, whoa, like this is getting real, like we're about to figure it out and this is gonna be good. So I think the movie does a really good job of like interspersing these like these fake signals to try to lead you off the trail and try to put you on your toes and make you more invested in trying to figure out what's going on. Something else about Trip is that I don't know what prompted him to open the closet to reveal Miss Swiss Miss, because she was like dead in the closet, right? And there was, unless there was like blood dripping from the closet or like there was a smell or a stench that he just noticed from the dead body, there was no reason to like open that closet to just reveal, because the guy, the character that the only way I remember him is that one of the guys called him a closeted gay. I forgot like which character that was, like the guy who was like the
bank officer, like
the bank officer,
the one who's like, oh, I know how to do criminal bank robbery counseling.
Yeah. So it was like that scene was like in the end he was basically like saying like, oh, we're almost done, we're all gonna be alive, we're all gonna be good, and then Trip's like, nope. And he just goes and opens the closet, and then the Miss Swiss Miss's dead body just comes out. And so like I was like, where does he come up, like this is where like when I was thinking like maybe it is Trip, because he like conveniently knows like everything that's unfolding, and he just goes and like opens the night vision goggles, opens the closet, and like reveals all these like big clues that like no one else seems to know about. So
right, the clicker in the mouth, the firing pin from the revolver, he removes that. He seemed very adept in having the situation become advantageous to him, but yeah, I don't recall. I don't recall why he opened the closet. Like he was on the floor, and then at least they didn't show us. But he looks up into the closet, right, and then he crawls over and opens it. But I don't know if what it was that he noticed. Yeah. Maybe the door was ajar or something. I don't know. But it was never. At least I don't feel like it was explained to us why he opened that door. But he notices something. But I don't know if we see that.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I could think of was maybe that of blood dripping from like the bottom, and he's at the floor, so he notices that there is like something weird with that closet and goes open. That's the only thing I can think of. But other than that, I just don't see like how he would just randomly be like, wait, you say that we're safe, but actually let me pull out my reverse Uno card and open this door, and out comes a dead body. We're not in the clear yet. But
yeah, one question I have for you guys is so like when the lights get turned off and he's killing people, like do you think he only intended to kill the people that he like wanted to kill, like that he invited there to kill? Because like I noticed, like for example, peanut butter and jelly, they end up surviving, and also like the number 3 person, Alexis, ends up surviving. Like do you think he also knew about Alexis, or is just kind of like coincidence that she was there at the time and he only killed the people that he truly needed killed? Because like if you notice, all the people in the like pro team or whatever, they died, and the security person also died, but yeah, I don't know, like I feel like the people he didn't deem as threats, like PB and J, like he could have killed them, like I'm guessing theoretically when the lights went off, but like didn't, I guess. So I don't know.
I think he didn't kill him because he probably didn't see him as threats.
Well, it's kind of weird because he invited them to the bank in the first place,
as
right?
Chaos, noise, to lead them off the trail, right? Like they're just like, they're just noise, distractions, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty smart to introduce a little bit of chaos and then be like, oh, like these guys are don't know what's going on, so I can.
I thought he was trying. I thought
get
no,
through.
I thought he was trying to get rid of them, but then when he didn't, you're right. I thought that it was kind of weird, but maybe you're right. He just maybe didn't see them as a threat. But I think like they established in the film like maybe many bank robbers. So I think he thought Caitlyn was just another teller, and didn't want to add another body count, because he didn't go after the other two bank employees, right?
He didn't go,
as you said.
He just went for the
to the other
people who were part of it.
Mr. Clean, as well as the last professional bank robber.
Yeah. He also didn't kill Tripp because he wanted to keep them alive as people, because people thought that Tripp was the Strom, which makes sense. And then so like this brings back to the point that you brought up, Josh, where like they were bringing up the list of the bank criminals, like the rankings. So Strom was number 1, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then number 3 was the girl, the woman, whatever her real name is.
Yeah.
Caitlyn. Okay, so that was a cool point that you brought up, because I actually didn't. I remember the scene, but I didn't remember that Vizsla Strom was listed as number 1. So.
Yeah, I think it's just that I thought that setup was really interesting, just because like it was like definitely that part was like part of the comedy part, right? Because it was like who would take time like during a bank heist to pull up
the
rankings to compare with the lower tier people.
Yeah.
And then it turns out to be very important later on, I guess. And so I kind of like that part.
No, it was a good part. I think this movie, even though it has like supposedly bad ratings, I think the rewatch factor of this movie is actually pretty high. Because
I guess it depends.
Wow, maybe not the first half, but the second half. The second, like once you know the plot, like if you're trying to figure out like where things happen, like the second half of the movie, if you like rewatch that for the details to see if there's any plot holes, I think that's where the rewatchability comes into play. Regarding the so out of if you were to like, let's say like improve the movie, so did you guys like the ending of the movie? Do you guys liked how it kind of they revealed who Vizsla Strom was, and then it turns out that Caitlyn was also another like bank heist, and she was just there independent of Vizsla's to get all the money, and then like in the end Tripp and Caitlyn are like, we're like partners in crime now. Do you guys like that? Do you guys like that ending, or do you think that because the ending could have been a lot of different things, right? Like I could have mentioned that they could have been like Tripp could have been on it, Caitlyn could have been on it, PB&J could have been on it. Sorry, I don't think that was actually a legitimate thing, but the ending could have been like, it could have gone in so many different ways because of how it was playing out. Do you guys liked how the ending played out in this film, or do you think it could have been better? And if so, like what could have been better about it? Like how would you improve it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ending was done pretty well. All things considering. I think I think trying to maybe, I guess not subtle, but like the whole Vizsla drum. I don't know if I'd like the way that they did the cutaway in terms of like the nice scene goggle and the whole. I think there was just a big disconnect in terms of like going to that story. I think maybe we could have had some kind of more realistic kind of explanation. Not realistic, but like more grounded is not the word either I'm looking for. I'm just like thinking like just the way that Vizsla Strom was revealed. I'm okay with the bank manager being Vizsla Strom, but I just think the way that it could have been revealed to us in a different, because I think I don't want Vizsla Strom to be known throughout the film, right? I think that was good. Like they kept it kind of secret and whatnot. Mm-hmm. It's just the way that the last reveal. I think I wanted to see more of maybe like maybe more of like a monk kind of thing, where we kind of see him do each of action, right? Just to see like how it made sense, right? Because now I'm trying to recall, but maybe seeing him actually do the action of killing Miss Swiss, like during that time, or we see him walking around to get to the other two, the other two bank robbers in the kitchen, or messing up with a propane tank, right? Maybe seeing that reveal would have kind of cemented like, okay, this is the guy who was he was being more believable, that he was going around doing all these things while Tripp was also trying to figure it out. So I think maybe having a more concrete reveal of Vizsla Strom might have like kind of sold it, but also because I think that's just revealing who the end bad guy was, but. Showing, I think I said this before, but showing that Caitlyn was in the number 3.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty like, well done, especially after Trip kind of exposes like, oh, you go to a country that's not extraditable, right? And it's just you in your picture, right? And then you have all these wedding gifts and whatnot. It was kind of weird that she, during the whole blackout that she was putting all this money in, but I thought she would do that before the whole bank heist, right? Because I thought that all the gifts were there already. But just maybe the reveal that she was number 3, I thought that was well done, and I was expecting her to be someone, and she turns out to be she is at least one of the other bank robbers who hits the bank during the vulnerable security times. And then but well, I think we touched upon this before, Patrick, but just like the whole romance aspect between her and Trip, don't think it was needed, or it was kind of again out of the blue, just the way it developed with the movie. Maybe that could have changed, maybe the way that they interacted, maybe showing either real near the middle or beginning that she wasn't married, right, or she wasn't like he kind of catches on to her, and that's why we maybe build more suspicion of her. And that's why I think maybe the romance just didn't really feel it. I didn't really feel it until maybe the end. It's like, oh, you're not actually married. Like, okay, well, that didn't really explain the whole movie when I was watching. Like the chemistry I didn't feel like it was there until the very, very end. So
yeah,
at least in terms of ending, those are the aspects I might have changed. But for the most part, I kind of like the direction that they went into.
Yeah. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, I don't know, actually. I think the first time when I watched it, I vaguely recall remembering, like, I felt like the last twist at the end that the girl was also, like, Alexis was, like, interesting, but, like, maybe, like, kind of unnecessary, because, like, I felt like the movie was already, like, good at that point, but, like, yeah, I don't know. I think when I was thinking about it before, it was just, like, I felt like the writers of the film was just trying to create as many plot twists as they could into, like, one film, kind of, which they did do, like, a lot of plot twists, and, like, yeah, I felt like, yeah, kudos to them for trying to do that, which is, like, interesting in, like, a technical, like, sense, I guess, if that makes sense. I think when I watched it again yesterday, I thought it was interesting just that, like, they did also have, like, kind of a setup for that, because earlier in the movie, I think someone mentions that, like, they're surprised that only 2 bank robberies are happening at the same time, and then it turns out, like, that she was the third one happening. So, like I just thought it was interesting that they always had something like in the movie, like, referencing, like, something that was going to happen later, like, and so, yeah, I don't know, like, yeah, I thought it was interesting overall. And as for the reveal for Vicella's drum, yeah, I kind of agree with Austin. I think it would have been interesting to see kind of, like, instead of, like, me having to go back and rewatch the movie just to see, like, the instances to make sure it was actually feasible, like, to see, like, kind of those actions happening. And it would have also, like, cemented the fact that it really wasn't Trip, kind of, because, like, like, it could have been Trip still. Like, Trip could have still, like, masterminded, like baiting this guy into, like, everyone else into thinking that it was him, kind of. But yeah, I don't know. Overall, I thought it was a good ending overall, I felt like. Yeah. What about you, Patrick? Do you have any thoughts on how to make it better?
Yeah. I think the ending, I think the ending overall was good. Now, I was thinking about whether or not Trip could have been Vasilis Drum. I mean, I'm like, that's the only other person who probably could have been, Vasilis Drum, other than maybe Caitlin. But I do like the twist that they had at the end where Caitlin was revealed as, like, an independent bank heist. I think that they executed that pretty well. Like, it was subtle enough because you kind of knew as an audience that there was something up with her. But you weren't sure whether or not it was, like, part of the whole entire plan, or if there was something that was, like, different. And it reveals, I mean, it's independent, right? So I think keeping those aspects, keeping those, like, little bits of like, speculation in for Caitlin was good, and I think her ending was fine in terms of, like, her being, like, number 3, or, like, the another independent bank heist. But in terms of the Vasilis Drum part, yeah, I think it's better that it wasn't Trip. I mean, now I'm thinking about it, because, like, if it were Trip, like, kind of, like, it's almost, like, too obvious. Like, if you think, like, okay, like, you as an audience is like, okay, well, like, it's weird because, he's, like, the protagonist, right? So you're like, oh yeah, he's probably not the antagonist. But then as the story progresses, and then as, like, everyone third party collects their facts, are like, wait a minute, it could actually be Trip, and now that you think it can be Trip, it is Trip, but then it actually isn't in the end. So I think it's better that it's not Trip. So overall, I think the ending was fine. That's not the part where I would focus on improving the film. I think I would focus on improving the beginning of the film. So to make it more likely that the audience will stay for the latter half, because I think people watched it and they would just get bored within the first half of the film. They would just like not see it unfold, like the better parts unfold. So like I'd probably go away, like, just, I mean, these are for smaller details, but I would probably, there's a scene where, like, there was a Matrix-esque scene where the bullets are flying in slow motion, and people are, like, I don't know if they're, like, necessarily dodging it, but I don't know if you remember that in the very beginning.
Oh, yeah, right at the beginning, like, when
they were shooting at each other. Like, I just thought that was really cheesy, and I didn't think it was necessary to incorporate that. Maybe it could have been there because they, like, the directors were like, oh, this is a comedy film, so we're just going to put in these parts, and maybe it could have been part of, like, the parody esque message of the film, but I felt like in the beginning, if they had trying to figure out like how they could have like incorporated this, but maybe if they somehow like, because the film didn't really get interesting until Trip started speculating that it was like part of a grander scheme.
Yeah.
Like it didn't start getting interesting until he started finding clues. And I think like if the exposition of the film, the beginning of the film, kind of cut parts where it was introducing these two factions as independent as bank heists or bank robbers, they just like went directly in, and cut out a lot of the beginning and sort of like reattached that time to like put into Trip's perspective of him looking for clues. Or like maybe going through his thought process, or like showing that like Bacillus Drum was the one who was going around killing people at the end. Like if some of that time was just split, taking it out of the beginning and put into these like better parts of the film, I think it could have been a better film overall. Because like in the beginning it was like 30 or 40 minutes of like just like, oh yeah, there's these bank robbers and there's PB&J and then
kind of
like
incompetence of
there's like this competency and then like stormtrooper aim and then like the slow motion bullets, and I'm just like I don't like it's fine to have the exposition, but I just didn't think that the beginning was very like, it didn't really catch my attention. Yeah. And if I had just been watching this for fun, there's a very good chance I would have just like went back and not see it play out. But because I was watching it for this film discussion, I knew I had to watch the entire thing. And I'm glad I didn't, because it really shined in when Trip was trying to figure it out. Like it could have turned into like a comedy Sherlock Holmes. Like that literally like is what the film could have been like.
Yeah, I think you have something there, right? Where like the comedy Sherlock Holmes. I think maybe the first introduction of Trip, I think, could have been handled better. Because his first introduction, I think we see him be do all this math, right? So it's like, okay, this guy's eccentric, right?
It probably goes into him like observing different things, like like there's something weird about this woman, there's something weird about the bank manager or the security guy in the back, there's something weird about the I don't know, some other aspect, like the FBI agent who's just standing there and not doing the bank. Yeah, like if he had done all these observations, then you kind of like know that this guy is like trying to figure stuff out.
That's why, so I think in his introduction, we could have seen at least him doing some kind of deduction. Like when his first introduction with Caitlin, it could have been like, oh, you don't do this, you don't look like this, blah 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 blah. Instead, we have this whole mathematic thing. It's kind of like, okay, like this guy's eccentric and he likes math, but no, it's not because he likes math. It's because it's because he does all these he can observe a lot. So I think his first introduction was that he does a lot of deductions, like Sherlock Holmes, right? Like Monk or like all these other whodunit capers. I think then it would have been it was cemented to me like, oh, this guy is like a mystery, a mystery solver, right? He likes to deduce things, right? So then when we go to the actual whodunit, it would have been more believable to me. Maybe where he devolves, right? So now he doesn't have his medication, right? It becomes more like comedic. Like, oh, before he was like sharp, and he knows like, oh yeah, this, and he's more like maybe suave. Now he has no medication. It becomes devolves into, okay, now I'm like obsessive. I gotta solve this case. maybe that would maybe to me become more funnier, and to me also become unbelievable that we're changing kind of like the genre. It's not like a action comedy bank heist, right? It's actually a whodunit of this guy being singularly focused, because we established like he was like likes to do all these kind of deductions, but now he really wants to solve like his bank case robbery, this bank murder within a bank heist, and becomes obsessive over it. And that may have for me improved the film. Just his own introduction. Again, I think it's just following the protagonist, and it being that likable, and it maybe I would have bought in a little bit more at that point.
Yeah.
So I think that could have again changed the tone of the movie, as well as changed my own expectation of how this movie would have gone, and where I would believe where things were being taken.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree with you. I think like I now that you mention it, I think that's a really good point in terms of like the introduction of Trip, because he is like this. He's the protagonist. He's the central focus, right. And like if he had done those deduction scenes, then you as an audience kind of know like what this film is going to be more about, because if they're focusing on these deductions, that these deductions are going to come into play later on. These are like plot devices that are going to come into play later on in the film. So it sort of sets up the right expectation of like this is going to be a mystery in a sense, and you're trying to figure out like what's going on. There are some ideas that I had that could make this film a lot more interesting. So how like as mystery unfolds and you try to figure out what's going on, there's different ways of telling the story, right? You could tell it in a very non-linear fashion, like chronologically. It could just be like different times, different periods of time, just interwoven, like, kind of like Memento. I don't know if you guys have seen Memento, but it's not linear, right? So you're trying to figure out like what's going on. I wonder if, it would have been way more confusing, and it would have been like the execution could have been way poorer. Like it could have just been a whole dud if not done properly. But I wonder if it was like way, like it could have been way better, like better in the sense if it was told in a non-linear fashion. In addition, if not necessarily in a non-linear fashion, then maybe in more perspectives, because there are a lot of characters, right? And the only perspectives that we kind of saw were Trips for the most part, and then PB&J's, and then the other three bank heist people, right? Like So those are like the three overarching perspectives that we saw. But like, what if we had seen like the perspective of everyone, including the killer? And then that, I don't know if that would have necessarily been better, because it would have been a lot of like, it would have been harder to like intertwine all these plot points.
Yeah.
But these are like, I guess, grander ideas that I don't know if like you think it could have been better if assuming that they were executed well.
Different perspectives. So with the different perspectives, I think that would have been an interesting route to go. But it also has to be like, do these characters add anything to their perspective, right? Like some of the bank employees, I feel like maybe not. But maybe seeing maybe Caitlin or the bank managers, or a different perspective, it could have worked, just give it a little more well-roundedness in terms of seeing different perspectives. But it depends on like what they will add to their story and how they interact, right? So maybe seeing the from one of the other bank teller's perspective, we could see like how she is observing something that's unusual about the bank manager, or she's observing something that's unusual about Swiss Miss, or the other maybe Mr. Clean, right? So that maybe that will add to like misdirection, right? So it could have been
a lot of misdirection.
A lot of misdirection. So it could have added to it if they added their own perspectives. But it all depends of what those characters would have added to the way the direction of the movie is, and how our perception of like who would be the bicyclist drum. So it might be possible, but again, we didn't get much about these characters, so we wouldn't know. But I think it could have added maybe another layer to it. You're right.
Yeah. It's I think this film has a lot of like, stemming from its core plot of like this deduction, like you're trying to figure out like this mystery. There is a lot of ways to tell the story, and I think it's one of those more interesting ones because it's so open-ended in terms of like the sort of like the overall outcome, or even the way that it could be told. There's just a lot more you can like discuss on it in terms of like what it could be, because I think this film could be really good. Like it is decent, and I think like, but I think it could have been like, I think the concept was very, very good, or very interesting at least. Because if you like Sherlock Holmes, you probably would like this film, at least the second half.
I was thinking that it's really interesting because like this movie tries to do like a lot in like pretty much just like 90 minutes.
90 minutes.
And like,
yeah.
like I think what you guys are saying is like they need. It's interesting because like you guys are saying they need both more setup, but then Patrick was also saying that like the beginning of the part was like boring, and like we should get to the like interesting part.
Well, I
Like,
was saying that they
and
could
so I find
change
it,
the setup.
like
Yeah.
yeah. I understand. Yeah, but it's really interesting that like I don't know, like in general, like I find like the beginnings of movies like generally pretty boring because like it's mostly like backstory. But I guess there's usually a point to backstory, I guess. So I thought it was very interesting for them to like literally like start out the entire scene, like the entire movie, like getting to the, like at least some of the action, like not the interesting action part, but like some of the action like so much faster than other movies.
Yeah.
I don't know, like yeah, I kind of agree. Like maybe some more setup like on like characters might have been useful, but yeah, I feel like just in general with like how much they were trying to do in that like time, I like maybe they could have made it better by making the movie longer or something like that. But I kind of appreciate shorter movies in general because I don't know, like I feel like it's very easy to add in like unnecessary things. But yeah.
I mean, that makes a good point, right? But I feel like, yeah, no, I think you're right. Like sometimes it's good to get straight to the point. But I think for this movie, some things could have been excised and then completely rearranged in terms of how it introduced us. Because again, they kind of drop you into the whole plot of the movie right there, right? And again, that kind of confused me. I think they have it a little bit more set up to explain what was going on was good. But then again, some of the middle of the action, like for beginning of the action, right, where they go the whole bank robber, there's a lot of shenanigans going on. Maybe that could have, for me at least, cleaned up or at least excised and taken out or cut or shown a different way to make it to have the point being made that this is a bank going on. Team B is not as competent. PB and J. But yeah, I think it does really just drop you in, and sometimes it's better for, especially if there's a movie like this where they try to again, it's a whole whodunit caper, right? So they want to explain everything that's happening along, so they really want to get you there, and they have to set up immediately first in the beginning of the whole bank robbery just so they can get to that mystery part much quicker. But yeah, there's definitely I think a time for everything, and I don't know if they maybe have use the time, I think, wisely in the beginning to show us where everything was going to happen. So
yeah, I'm trying to think of like in terms of like beginnings to sort of to capture your attention. Like if you look at think of like the BBC version Sherlock episodes. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those, but usually from my memory at least, the way those episodes began is like usually the crime is unfolding in the very beginning, like some sort of crime is unfolding in the very beginning regarding like maybe a murder or like some super like some weird events that are like people are trying to explain disappearances or whatever, and then it goes into like Sherlock trying to figure out what's going on. Now I think it might be easier for them because Sherlock is a branded name, so people know what they're getting into when they see Sherlock Holmes as right. The name. But this film doesn't have that luxury because it's completely new. But I wonder if it could have been a better attention grabber if the crime, oh man, I don't know, like somehow the climax of the film was incorporated into the beginning of the movie, and you're like, what the heck's going on? And then it kind of does like a 24 hours before, and then the beginning of the film unfolds. So it's like you sort of see like, oh, but the problem with that is like, I wonder if that would cheapen the climax in a way, because if you already see it happening, then you already know that's going to happen at some point. You're trying to, as the audience, trying to figure out like when it's going to happen. Right. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just comparing it to like how like Sherlock Holmes, the BBC version does it, and I wonder if that could have made the film a bit better. But at the same time, I also think it could have made it worse in some aspects.
Yeah.
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 Maybe the film didn't require too much of a change. It's just some shifting of the exposition. Maybe what you mentioned, Austin, about him introducing Trip as more of like a deductive person, so it sets up the right expectation later on as plot points. And then also seeing what you guys mentioned in terms of seeing actual Vasilis Drum actually commit the murders, so that it's less confusing like who's doing it. So it's like you're not like, I don't know, trying to still figure it out when it's the climax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you do need a little bit of recovery in terms of plot twists, plot points. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Josh?
Yeah. I did want to say that I feel like like this film was like unique, I guess. Like I feel
it is unique.
like even though it was I feel like that's kind of one of the reasons why I liked it. Just that it was so different from like the fact that it like even like changed from like crime like heist or comedy heist to like kind of a whodunit thing is like I don't think I've ever seen a movie that's like been done like that before. And it's just like I don't know. I think the fact that it stood out from other movies that I've watched is like part of the reason why I liked it. And I think I don't know, like it was just special. Like it was like very, very, very different from like most movies that I've seen. Like, and I kind of appreciate like them like wanting to try something like that kind of like very like challenging the status quo kind of like.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of stuff is not status quo.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a shame actually that this movie didn't have as much advertising. Like I feel like if it had more advertising, then maybe it could have done better in terms of like because if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, it's like 16%, and so like I like okay to me, I think the movie's much better than 16% personally, and we can go on to ratings later. Like this is a segue into ratings because we usually rate the film at the end, but
Okay,
like I just think that like maybe given more advertising, this film could have had a higher rating because more people would have watched it, and I feel like if more people had watched it, there might have been more chance that they would have appreciated it. More than 16%, but I wonder how active the Rotten Tomatoes is. Like I don't know like when the most recent review is, and I don't know if it's mostly critics who are reviewing it because I feel like if critics review it, they probably have a lot to nitpick about it. But
really
like Austin does.
There's only 19 critic reviews.
Oh, there's only okay.
There's only 19 critic reviews, which is like very few compared to like most Rotten Tomato like rated movies. And it's also interesting because if you look at IMDb, like there was like 6.4 or something similar to that, which is way higher than what I expect from a 16%. Like
it is a big discrepancy.
And when I was like looking it up earlier, I was like trying to do a baseline, and I was like baselining it against like Avatar: The Last Airbender movie. Which,
okay, you're right. I mean, this is way better than the Last Airbender, in my opinion. I didn't even finish Last Airbender. I watched half of it. 10 on
IMDb, so like I don't know. I think it's actually interesting because like I'd be interested to see what other movies are similar to this where the critics rated it very poorly and like IMDb has like a decent rating. I mean, 6.4 is like not stellar by any means,
but 6.4 on IMDb is also critics, right? Or is it users?
No, it's mostly users.
Oh, I see.
And there's a lot more votes. So
the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes for Flypaper is 42%.
Yeah, that one's also low. Yeah. So like IMDb is 31,000 votes for 6.4. And if you read most of the reviews, I would say like the majority of the reviews are saying this film is like underrated, which is interesting to me.
I think it's
like you don't see that if you go to the Avatar: The Last Airbender movie like reviews. Like no one is saying this is severely underrated or anything like that. So
right.
I just found it really interesting that like the critics and like a lot of the users or like normal like viewers kind of disagreed about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't imagine at the time this movie was I mean, because of the marketing, because of the lack of attention, it just kind of fell under the radar. And then a few critics saw it, and then those probably had a lot of because there were a few critics saw it, a few of them, and most of them, the few who did see it didn't like it. It probably gave an impression of like it was a bad film. So when people start watching it, they're like, "Oh, this is a bad film." Because now they have this bias.
Exactly. That's what. Like, so I was watching this with my sister actually yesterday, and she kept asking me like, "What is the rating? What is the rating?" I was like, don't worry about the rating. And then she was like, "I'm just gonna look it up." Then and I was like, "Okay." I told her like it has like a bad rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
But like still like trying to watch it, and like I don't know. I feel like I'm actually the kind of person that does that. Like I base my expectation on ratings like very heavily, and so the fact that I watched this on a plane where I had no access to Rotten Tomatoes was like probably the only reason why I ever watched this plane. I'm just, like, watch this movie, and I'm just wondering like what other movies are out there that I would actually enjoy that I've just been skipping on just because like the ratings were just like really bad, you know? Like,
yeah, it's kind of a shame to be honest, like because some movies are very long, right? So you don't necessarily if it's a bad movie, you don't want to like invest 2-3 hours into watching a bad movie because at the end you're like. You feel like it's a waste of time, but like, yeah, it's kind of a shame to be honest with so there's some like, what's it called, like false negatives out there, and like if you just sort of like ignore it, like it's like that saying, you can't judge a book by its cover, you know. In a sense, you can't judge a movie by its rating, almost like all the time.
That's true.
But it's just a matter of how much time you're willing to invest, if you're willing to give it a chance. I mean, I think I would say statistically, for the most part, the rating is probably representative, and there's a high correlation with the rating and the quality. But yeah, like this one for instance is definitely, like, to me, a false negative. Like, it's definitely not a 16% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I would argue with that. You're wrong, Patrick.
Okay, well,
I feel like with the rating here, it would. I feel like it matched. I feel like.
You think? Okay, hold on. All right. So, what is your rating, Austin, for this
like,
film? What is your rating out of 10?
I just want to say my 2 cents, because you guys were all going on about how the rating, and I'm just like, yeah, that's true.
Well, you're a good thing I brought back up, because it's 2 out of 3.
But for here, I feel like the rating does kind of correlate, and I feel like I would have probably avoided it, and I would have made good sense to avoid. I mean, yeah, there's some redeeming qualities in the movie, but for me, I just like again, there's a lot of points that did not work out, and after discussing, give it some benefit of the doubt, and some of this, there are some points in the movie that was smartly done. But at the end, I just remember, my feeling when I was watching this movie. I was like, just like not having any of it. And I remember at the end of the movie, I was kind of worked up, just like, oh my gosh, like what did I just watch? And I couldn't, maybe a second viewing would have, maybe made it better. But I didn't want to watch this movie again. And this movie just, there's a lot of things that happened where I did not understand it. I did not get it. And it just, it did not make sense to me, and I just was not buying a lot what was happening. And which is I looked up who directed the movie, Rob Minkoff, right?
Yep, it's a Rob Minkoff.
He was actually the co-director of Lion King.
Wait, the animated feature or the live action?
The animated feature. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, and he also did other animated movies: Stuart Little 2, Haunted Mansion. He actually also directed the Forbidden Kingdom. Jackie Chan and Jet Li.
Yeah.
But just this movie, this movie of his just did not sit well with me.
We got a hater.
My original rating would have been probably just a 2 for this, just because I did not like the way that it's going. But I think after discussing it, I might raise it just to a little higher, to like a 2.5. There's some redeeming, but just still not enough for me to enjoy this movie, watching it, and I don't think I want to do a repeat viewing of it again. And I think that kind of also goes with whether or not I would recommend this movie. I would probably tell somebody who is asking me, hey, should I watch it? I'm probably like, I don't think you should spend time watching it, unless you have nothing to do, or if you're on a plane, maybe.
Oh my goodness. 2.5. Interesting. That's a really harsh. All right. I can understand.
It's good actually to hear like your insights, because I guess like to me, like since I saw so many user reviews that were actually pretty like good for them, like, and I wasn't really sure like what kind of people like would like, or like what the people who didn't like the movie like didn't like about it, but really interested to get your perspective.
I think for the most part, Austin didn't like the movie because of he took it too seriously, He was taking it
probably is. I think
maybe the beginning didn't set the right expectations for you in the movie, and so because you were looking for those right expectations, you just didn't pan out the way that you thought it was, and then you were confused, and then that led to not enjoying it. I can understand.
I think it's compounded. I think once I got the feeling, like the first movie is like you're the hook, right? You gotta get the interest, the expectation, and then whether or not I feel good about the movie. If I feel good about the movie in the beginning, right, I'm gonna feel good maybe watching it, and maybe have a little bit more positive feeling. But the first scene, I was just like what was happening? I didn't like going on, and it just went down from there. And at that point, I was turned away. So I think the beginning really, at least for me, made a good introduction, And then also again, comedies I feel like are just not a genre that maybe it's not suited for me, right? I think Patrick,
Yeah, I know.
a lot
We've
of the
had this
comedies that
discussion
we've
before.
watched before, I
Yeah.
take a little bit more seriously than the usual dramas or the other actions movies that we've seen.
Yeah, we have a split. Like I think I'm more critical of dramas and you're more critical of comedies.
Yes.
So, it's pretty interesting. Josh, your rating. It's gonna be good.
I don't know. Yeah, I would say maybe like 7 or
7.
maybe
Okay.
so. I don't know. I don't know
Alright.
like. But actually, I don't really rate movies in general, so I don't know like what is actually like a good rating for it. But it was something that I enjoyed. Like I was engaged throughout the movie, and it was like it wasn't like something that, especially after the second half started, like that I was um, like thinking like, oh, I don't want to watch this movie anymore because it's too boring. Like most of like the time flew like after the second half because like things were like moving pretty fast, and also like new things were always happening and stuff like that. So just from that, I felt like it was like a good movie overall to me. Like and yeah, so like whether or not I recommend to a friend, I guess I did recommend it to you guys, so I did.
Thanks for the recommendation, by the
guess.
way. By the way, chat, we take
Thank you,
recommendations. If you want to recommend a film, post it in chat. I don't know who else is watching this, but if you watch it later, whatever, just we take recommendations. This is evidence of it. So yeah. Sorry, Josh.
Yeah, I think whether or not I recommend it to another person, it would be highly dependent on like what I thought they would like. Because like I agree, probably not the right movie for everyone. But I think, yeah, I don't know. And just in general, I feel like this was a movie that was like not forgettable for me. Like the fact that like after 5 or 6 years of like after I watched it, I was still thinking about whether or not like my rating, like my expectations of the movie was just completely wrong is like something that like doesn't really happen with most movies. Like most movies, it's like I'll watch it and then like I'll be like, oh yeah, that was like pretty good, and then I'll just forget the entire plot and like never think about that movie ever again. But just like the fact that it was like unique and special in that way, I think it's just like an interesting film to me. So yeah, Patrick, what is your rating?
Yeah, Patrick.
Yeah. So to me, this film I would rate. So the overall rating that I came about, I'd probably give it. Okay, actually no. I'll just go through how I explain it. But like the first half of the film, I'd probably give it a 2, because like I just didn't. Just there were some effects that were just really cheesy. And I was just like, why am I watching this? Why am I watching like Stormtrooper aim? Why am I watching these slow motion bullets that I could watch in The Matrix, or something like better executed? Like, why am I watching these like PB&J? Like, I mean, PB&J was fine. Like, I think they grew on me, but in the beginning, I was like, this is just
Exactly.
this is the silly. This is just like exposition of this film is like I don't know where this is going. And I just thought that like. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I didn't take it too seriously, but I was thinking like, where is this going? Like, I don't know. Like, is it going to be like just a standoff between these two factions or whatever? But then eventually, when the film picked up and we figured out it was like a mystery and you're trying to figure out like what's going on with this initial murder. But the second half of the film, I think I would probably give it like an 8. I really enjoyed it.
Really?
Like I like if the film like went directly to the second half of the film and it was like a 40-minute special, like I would have just been like, I'm on board. Like I love trying to figure out this kind of stuff in real time. Like I love it like when it's like the film gives you these like really subtle like these signals of like, oh, like it's probably this person or that person, and you're trying to figure out like whether or not it's person A, person B, person C, and then this like in real time when the audience is trying to figure out with the screen with the characters, like I just like it's like more engaging in a sense, almost like you're playing a game. Like the closest thing like to playing a game, because like no one really knows what's going to happen, almost, and I enjoyed that journey, because you also don't really know how it's going to end, and it's just like seeing that journey unfold in real time is just really engaging and really like it's just one of those things of like storytelling that I really appreciate, because it's like it's all about like for the audience, it's all about like figuring out how to tell a story that like captures their attention, and the second half of the film definitely like kept my attention throughout the entire film. Like I was like it was to the point where like in the first half I kept on looking like how long the film was because 30 minutes passed and I felt like an hour had passed. But then like it was a complete opposite for me because in the second half of the film because like the film ended and I was like, wait, that's it? Like I knew when it was about to end. Like I was like, wow, this went by so quickly and it was the same length compared to the first half. So like to me, because it felt so quick, even though it was the same amount of time, that was a really good sign. So yeah, I guess if you average it, it's a 5. But
because yeah, I don't know.
I will say that I think I would give it actually like maybe like closer to 5.5, yeah, no, I actually no, I'll give it a 6. I'll give it a 6.
A 6.
Because the parts that I did like about it, I did like the comedy aspect of it a lot. I did like some of the chemistry between the characters. I liked PB&J. The reason I like PB&J was because I told Josh this earlier, but right when they were introduced, or a couple scenes like after they were introduced, they reminded me of these Overwatch characters. And there's this Overwatch duo called Junkrat and Roadhog that are like basically like they're almost like PB&J. Like they do these heists. They're really into explosives. They're like a comedic duo of like, and every time like. And they're sort of their characterization of these characters from Overwatch are like they're like hillbillies, Australian hillbillies, and every time PB&J were on screen, they were in the music in the background. They would play this little hillbilly tune. So I just like it just felt very like appropriate to compare it. And I really like that. I mean, I'm biased because I like Overwatch and I like playing Junkrat and Roadhog. So like it just felt like so natural for me to like them. But yeah, I also really liked the little twist at the end. The ending was very good, in my opinion. The second half of the film was just really, really good. I felt like that part was just so underrated. It's just a shame that the beginning of the film felt slow and it felt like it took a little bit too much time, I think, to figure out like where the film was going. At least in my opinion. But yeah,
and sometimes I feel like the first half is like. I feel like it's like another one of their twists kind of in the like big scheme. It's like they twisted like what like your expectations of the movie was going to be like in my opinion. Like it was just like layers and layers of twists like
but you can't
that's like what I thought was just like so interesting about it. So.
But the problem with the issue with that is like you can't have the twist be too late in the film, otherwise you divert the attention of like you don't get the person's attention quick enough, or you like they expect something, they think expect A and then now it's going to B, but like the film is already like halfway through and it's like if you're expecting like I mean the more of like an exaggerated form is like if you're expecting a dramedy and then it becomes a comedy at the end, you're just like what did I watch, you know? I mean that's sort of an exaggeration.
It's probably shorter on the front, but I feel like the fact that it was there wasn't necessarily bad. Like even though it was like slow to watch in the beginning, I felt like it's served its purpose in the film.
It did serve its purpose, But there are ways to improve it, I think. And I think Austin mentioned like doing the whole like introducing Trip in a different way. I think that's a very good prominent role because then you can just see like that there is the fact that he's deducing things and the fact that he's bringing up these plot points means that they will be handled in the future and means that it's probably going to be like you're trying to figure something out. So I think that's setting like a better expectation of like instead of same prime numbers of quarters and dimes of getting the money out. And then another thing I really my last quip about this film that I did like, and probably why I brought it up to a 6 is because I thought it was like it did a good job of parodying other aspects of films. For instance, like the whole like the whole like crime heist genre, like I think it was like kind of parodying that with PB&J almost, and then like also the killing of like Swiss Miss of like, and then of course like one of the guys was like like oh man like it sucks when a pretty character is killed, like but like you don't necessarily care more. It's like what I mentioned earlier, like you're almost telling the audience that like we are more invested in attractive characters somehow because it's like you know like and telling us that like we're not as invested with people who aren't as attractive, but somehow that's a work. That's like Hollywood, right? Like you if you don't know a character, if you don't get a sense of like what they are, who they are, then the only thing you can base them off is their appearance, and something like, I guess naturally you care more about those who are more attractive. Unfortunately, that's how life is sometimes. But like he does bring a good point. Like he literally was telling the audience like this is like, you probably care more about this character than like some of the other characters because she's attractive. And I just love that, like almost breaking a fourth wall-esque, like, anyway, yeah.
It was actually interesting in this aspect because I almost didn't care about Swiss Miss at all because she had like very little like lines before that. Like I think she only had like one line or something like that.
Did
and
she
so
have
like
any
to
lines?
me
I feel like
actually
she didn't have any. Okay,
I think she was talking to the Mr. Clean guy or something. Like
Did she even talk? Oh no, yeah,
did
no,
she
I
talk?
don't.
I feel like she just. I feel like she just like.
Oh, no English. She said no English.
know
Yeah.
No English. That's right. Okay. Yeah.
So in some aspect, I was like not attached to the character at all, and actually like probably felt worse when some of the other characters died. Actually, maybe not. I don't know, but like at least those people were like part of the plot. So it was kind of interesting that they brought up that point for her, where like she had no like almost no representation in the movie.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny because she was introduced really at the beginning, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty prominently, but she
She
had
didn't
no
really have a role
at all.
She didn't really have much of a role. But yeah. Oh, I just think of something else. When at the very end, this is probably our last point because I just this film's very interesting. The fact that like there's a lot to discuss
I don't know,
about
man.
this.
I don't. You keep bringing.
No. Okay, at the end, Vasilis Drum killed Mr. Clean. Mr. Clean wasn't part of the overall thing, right? Was it that he killed the people who are highest priority and he was going to go down the list, but then like at the end, like the lights turned on, so he wasn't able to execute everyone? Because Mr. Clean wasn't involved, right? Mr. Clean wasn't like...
Yeah.
He was just... Yeah, he's a rando, almost. But he ended up dying.
He was I think he was robber.
I think he was... He was an ex-bank robber, but he was...
Yeah.
Like retired or something before.
Reformed. He went to prison, came out.
Yeah.
It was just...
And I think Vasilis Drum actually killed Mr. Clean before he killed the Australian dude, or the British dude, I forget his name.
I think so too, yeah.
So it is interesting that Mr. Clean ended up dying instead of like... Because like... We talked about how like the priority of people, like he wanted to kill the people who were involved more, and he didn't really think PB&J was. We concluded that PB&J wasn't a threat, and then he wanted to keep Trip alive because people thought that he was the baddie. Yeah. So like, it's just interesting how Mr. Clean died. Now that I think about it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'll show you there.
That's true. Like,
maybe this film isn't a 6. Maybe it's a 5.75 because of that. I'm just kidding. But no, it's a 6. Anyway, I think that's basically we're at the end of this film discussion. I don't know about you, but I'm hungry, so I want to go eat something. But thank you, Josh, aka Jake Felix Slayer. Thanks for joining us for this stream. Thanks for being with us for the entire time. I think this film was very interesting. It was divisive. We had different ratings. Most of Austin had a different opinion, which was nice. We had a good time to discuss. For those of you who are in chat or those of you who will watch later, Austin and I, we do a film discussion every week at 11 a.m. Pacific time. We choose the film after off stream, but I upload it onto the Twitch schedule. So if you're following, if you want to go to the channel, there's a schedule, and then you'll see at 11 a.m. every Sunday. The next Sunday, you'll see what film we're going to discuss. We also have a YouTube channel called Yip a Trick, where Austin uploads these sort of like better audio versions and shorter. It removes the shorter clips of the stream. So if you want to watch like a more condensed, condensed version of the stream itself. You can go to that. It's youtube.com/yipatrick, YIPYI, and then Patrick. That's it. So yeah. Thanks again, Josh, for joining us. Feel free to recommend us more movies. We'll watch them, and then we can if you wanna come back on, we'll invite you back on. It was a good time. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for taking my recommendation, and thanks for the discussion. It was great to hear both
No
sides.
problem. I hope everyone learned something more about this film, or got something out of it, because I for sure did. I think, yeah. Well, cool. With that, I bid you guys adieu. Have a good, fantastic rest of the day, as well as anyone who's going to watch this later on. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you again next Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific time. All right.